Good evening, students. Welcome to the live coaching classes organized by Board of Studies ICA. This session is a continuation of our previous session on place of supply related provisions. Last class, we had discussed provisions connected with domestic transactions, that is supply of goods and supply of services, where supplier is in India, that is taxable territory. Recipient of goods or services is also in India. Before we start with our discussion, people are listening to me. Please confirm you're able to hear me and also you're able to see my screen. Once I receive a confirmation from some of you, I'll go ahead with my today's discussion. Yeah. Good evening. Thanks for the confirmation, Kaushiki. Mansa is asking this particular question. Sir, I have not attended the previous lecture of place of supply. Would it be difficult to understand this problem? Mansa, no worries, ma. Like last session, we had a discussion on domestic services. Today's session, we are going to have a discussion on cross-border transactions. Anyways, I'm going to have a recap of what we have discussed in the previous session. Also, I have a few examples for us to practice from previous topic, what we have discussed. Students, as I explained through, my advice, please have your institute material next to you. Reason, all the discussions, what I'm going to explain, all the problems I am going to explain to you is on the basis of your institute material. It helps you to make a running notes as I take you through these particular provisions. So any particular problem, any particular topic which I have not covered or you feel anything was missed on, you can feel free to raise your point in between. And institute material, the best material you have for your examination purpose. End of every chapter, we have this practice problems, test your knowledge. Very, very neatly it has been elaborated. So my advice, please don't miss to read your institute material. So let's start for today's discussion. Today I'm going to have a quick recap of previous class with respect to goods, with respect to services. I'll explain you with respect to cross-border transactions, how we identify the place of supply in relation to import, in relation to export. Also, there are a few problems which I have set up for our today's discussion. Domestic transactions. In relation to goods, there are 5 transactions which have been analyzed. In relation to goods, section 10 has dealt with identifying place of supply. Point number 1, supply involves movement of goods. Wherever there is a supply, where there is a movement of goods, the point where the termination stops for delivery, that is a particular place where my place of supply is identified. Last class, I don't remember the student name. Someone was asking, what is this consumption-based taxation? The point of taxation, the way the GST was designed is where the consumption happens, that is a state or that is a place where the tax flows under GST. So in case of movement of goods, wherever the movement is going to get terminated, that is going to be my place of supply. So if I make a supply, say I'm a supplier in the state of, registered supplier in the state of Rajasthan. I supply the goods to a customer in Kerala. So when the goods move from Rajasthan to Kerala and the termination of movement happens in Kerala, my place of supply happens to be Kerala. So what happens if the termination of movement is not known in case of an unregistered person? In case of an unregistered person where we don't know where the movement is going to get terminated, identify the place of supply as the location of the seller. Like example, sir, I have a mobile shop. I have mobiles which are sold on my shop. When a customer comes in, who is a B2C customer, who is not registered on the GST law, when I sell these particular mobiles, I don't know whether this mobile is going to be in the same state or it is going out of my registered state. In that case, though there is a movement, I call that as a supply at the registered person's premises. Then, clause B, which deals with your bill to ship to model. A tri-party transaction. Tri-party transaction. There's a party called seller. There's a party called buyer. In between, there is one more party called recipient. So there could be a transactions where the transfer of title to goods happens after commencement of movement or before commencement of movement. Take example of a wholesale dealer. Generally, the wholesale dealers, they don't have a godown. What they do, they procure the orders from customer. Back to back, they place orders on their suppliers. For a moment, let's assume that I'm a wholesale dealer in plywood business. Whenever my customer asks, say a particular design, particular pattern, he wanted some 50 sheets to be delivered at his construction site. So what I do, I back to back place on my main manufacturer. From the manufacturer's place, it goes and delivers at the recipient place. This is a tri-party model, build to, ship to. The manufacturer builds to the wholesale dealer, ships to or delivers to the recipient. So when there is a tri-party model, the third party, who happens to be a person who gives the instruction. In this case, the provision says that identify the place where such person is registered. That should be your place of supply. In the tri-party model, identification of a third person is something which is important. The third category, there is no movement of goods. Category A, category B, both have movement of goods. Category C, at times it so happens that the goods lie at the same location. Just the transfer of right to use, just the transfer of ownership takes place. So in case there is a supply where there is no movement. Now this is one factor most of us doesn't know how to identify when there is a supply. I'll just come to a fresh slide to make you understand this aspect. Whenever you do an internal audit or GST audit, say you pick a transaction for supply of goods. Now, whenever there is a transaction for supply of goods, you need to understand various aspects. Point number one, goods requiring e-way bill. All of us know that there is a provision called e-way bill under GST law. Was there any e-way bill raised for the movement of goods? If you have an answer, you can have an answer no, you can have answer yes. If the answer is no, then you can ask, why is that e-way bill not required? Now, probably value of consignment is less, or the goods are exempted, or there could be a transaction where I have not used motorized vehicle for transportation, or there is no movement of goods. There is no movement of goods. Now, these questions, if you have examined based on your answers, one of the point is your no movement of goods. So in this case, you'll examine the place of supply identification. Place of supply identification. As per section 12, subsection 3, when there is no movement of goods, the point where delivery happens. Point where delivery of goods takes place. That shall be the place for my place of supply. Now, if you ask, sir, is there any occasion, are there any instances where supply can take without movement of goods? I have given one example called DG set installed. DG set installed for power backup. Now, generally, whenever we vacate a premises, this could be one example where I don't uninstall and reinstall. Point number 2, old used furniture. Old used furniture. Most of us in our CA practice, very short span, you're going to qualify as a chartered accountant. Some of you, when you get into practice, generally what we do, we either share offices with some senior, or we take a office on a sharing basis, or we take an old used office because we want to save money on furniture. Now, when I have purchased furniture, now there is no movement. the the predecessor who is going to vacate the premises, he says, Praveen, this is the furniture available. I make a transfer to you by raising a tax invoice. That could be a second scenario. Third scenario, say, plant and machinery installed at a premises, or plant and machinery made available, transfer of right to use. Transfer of right to use. There could be cases where I have supplied a plant and machinery on rental basis. This particular plant and machinery, I have let it out as it is without causing movement of goods. This could be a third example where my provisions of section 10, subsection 3 comes into picture, where they say the place where the transfer or the availability is made is the place of supply. This is my example for provisions of section 10, subsection 3. Then clause D, where goods are assembled or installed at site. Now, examination, particularly, you will be asked a problem on the basis of this clause D. Section 10, clause D. 10(1)D. Section 10, subsection 1, clause D. Now, there is an example of one windmill project. Windmill power project. Second, solar panels, solar power. Third, you have this, say, this oil tanker for storage. So these are the examples where all these are heavy industry where my installation and assembly takes place. Installation and assembly takes place at site. So here they say the supplier is important and my place of supply is identified on the basis of installation where the assembly or installation is going to take place. So here they say wherever there is a supply, the supply, all these cases, the supply happens where the movement happens in CKD condition or SKD condition. How do we get to know? On the basis of business study. When you understand the nature of business of the registered person, you get to know that place of supply doesn't work on the basis of GST registration of customer. GST registration of customer. My GST registration of customer is irrelevant in cases of section 10, subsection 1, clause D, where my supply of goods happens not in the same form. Supply of goods takes place in a CKD or SKD condition. This is my next provision connected with goods. Last provision, where goods are supplied on board, conveyance, etc. So whenever the goods are supplied on a board or conveyance, they say the point at which the goods are taken on board, that will be my place of supply. I gave example of Rajdhani Express. Suppose this pre-packaged edible items or pre-packaged food items. So you have this mixture or sweets or this paratha, etc. If there is a pre-packaged foods which are called as goods for the purpose of classification, if those are supplied on a train or conveyance or board, which happens to be a supply of goods. So on goods board or conveyance, the place where the goods are taken on board, that should be my place of supply. How does the identification happens? I have given an example of IRCTC, where every station where the goods are taken on board, that will be recorded for the purpose of raising a tax invoice. End of my journey, they will take a stock. How many I have loaded? How many were remaining in the closing stock? For the consumption, what happened? I raise a tax invoice. This is my example for place of supply of goods in relation to supplied on board or conveyance. Now, before I get into services, let me see if there are any doubts in relation to whatever discussions we have. Tirupati is having one question. In case of passenger transport service, under 12(9), issue of right to passenger for future use point. What if future boarding point is known like buying season tickets from Delhi Metro by a person who came from outside Delhi. Here we know boating must be within the state of Union Territory of Delhi. Hope this rule should apply with. Okay, let me just read this question once again. In case of passenger transport services, okay, I'll do one thing, Tirupati. When I come to section 12, clause 9, I'll explain in detail with respect to passenger transportation services. Now, with respect to services, transportation of, services is something which is intangible. It was a policy. Let me just come to the first thing. Services are intangible. So what they have done, they have broadly identified the place of supply on following basis. Point number 1, they have given specific list. Wherever there is a possibility, where the GST Council felt that we have to define the place of supply for few services which are of primary importance. They have given entry under section 12, subsection 3 to section 12, subsection 13. Now, I have these various services where they have identified all my possible services to identify. Second, they have given general category. General category. That means to say, wherever you don't find your services in this particular list, you refer back to this general category, which is covered under section 12, subsection 2. Third, in the process of defining the services, they have identified some category where the place of supply is linked to registration status. Registration status. That means to say, the government has made a policy. Some of the services, I'll not break my head, I'll not make it complicated. We will identify place of supply as a place where services are rendered to a registered person. If the services are not rendered to a registered person, they have defined how to identify my place of supply. These are the basic cardinal principles how section 12 has been framed under IGST law for domestic services. For domestic services. When I say domestic services, service provider and service recipient, both are in taxable territory. Both these people are in taxable territory. This is what they have identified. Now, coming back, notified list of services, section 12, subsection 3. In relation to immobile property, they have said that wherever the services are rendered in relation to immobile property, they have given list of services. Like you can have services in relation to architect, design, survey, or engineering services, or related services. Or you can have construction related services, or you can have accommodation provided for stay in an immobile property, or hiring of an immobile property for conducting some cultural, social events, etc. For all these category of services, they say, where the immobile property is located, that should be my place of supply. Fourth, with respect to section 12, subsection 4, performance-based category. What they have said is, in case of section 12, subsection 4, we have services in relation to catering services, grooming services, fitness services, like health insurance or medical services, healthcare services. All these cases, they say, wherever the actual performance happens, that will be my place of supply. In 12 subsection 3, 12 subsection 4, there is no reference made to a registered person. Then, in relation to 12 subsection 5, they have identified training or performance service, where they say, in case if the services are given to a registered person, that should be the place of supply. If services are given not to a registered person, the place where the training was actually performed, that shall be my place of supply. Why this training and performance was referred to a registered person, like this online coaching classes? For a moment, let's assume then every student pays a sum of rupees, say 1,000 rupees to attend these classes. So when there is a GST to be charged, I should know whether the recipient is registered under GST or not registered under GST. So if there is a registration, then identify that particular state where the registered person is registered. That will be my place of supply. Clause number 6, admission. Now, clause number 6 is very general, where if there is an admission ticket collected for a cultural event, for an artistic event, or for a sports or a scientific or educational events. Like example, so there is a museum where students visit for understanding some historical monuments, or there is a science fair where the school or college going students attend for gaining knowledge out of that. So wherever there is an entrance fee collected in relation to admission, they say the place where this admission, this particular the event is being held, that will be my place of supply. For clause number 6, no identification of registered or unregistered person. Clause number 7, organizing events. Now here, the business class comes into picture. Now, I gave example of a chartered accountant firm where once in a year, we have annual outing. So when we have this get together where we go out with families for maybe cultural, sports or education or some events, then they say, if the services are rendered to a registered person, then that should be the place of supply. If services are not rendered to a registered person, the place where this particular event has been conducted, that will be my place of supply. Next, point number 8 is in relation to transport of goods. I gave an exhaustive example for identification of place of supply in relation to transportation of goods. Because it is one of the essential expenses in my business, if services are rendered to a registered person, that location of such person will be my place of supply. Like transporter, take example, say there is a agency called VRL Travels. When VRL Travels raise a bill on Asian Paints, Asian Paints is a registered company. So when they have to transport the goods from one state to another state, when the services are rendered to a registered person, the place where they are registered, that should be the place of supply. So what if the transportation is done to a person who is not registered under GST law? They say the place where the goods are handed over for transportation, that should be my place of supply. In case of passenger transportation service, Tirupati, this is a point where your question comes into picture. Now, I'll explain the provision, then I'll come back to your question. In case of passenger transportation service, again, prominence is there with respect to business class, registered people. Traveling is one of the essential expense for marketing people. So for that reason, they say, if this passenger transportation services are rendered to a registered person, then location of such person will be my place of supply. So what if this is rendered to a person who is not registered? Then they say, wherever the passenger embarks on that particular journey, that will be my place of supply. Like I gave example of Rajdhani Express. Say Rajdhani Express starts its journey from Delhi, say till Kerala. Assuming there are 8 states through which this Rajdhani Express travels. Wherever I board into the train, that I'm a registered person in the state of Karnataka. I'm a chartered accountant. I'm registered in Karnataka. I have a client, say in Haryana. I have to travel to Haryana for giving a lecture over there. What I would do, say Gurugram is the place where I have to visit. Delhi is the nearest airport. I booked flight from Bangalore to Delhi, again back from Delhi to Bangalore. Though I did a back-to-back ticket booking, my journey from Bangalore till Delhi is different. Delhi to Bangalore is going to be considered as different. Now, in this case, though I'm a registered person, my based on the ticket, like Delhi to Bangalore, they say the origination is Delhi, service provider is in Delhi. Since I'm registered in Karnataka, places of the happens to be Karnataka. I did both to and fro ticket booking. Now, what if I get free tickets where they say, Praveen, you have traveled, say you are a frequent regular traveler, you are our regular customer. I give a free ticket which can be encashed on a particular month. Assuming for a moment, I have traveled for 10 times. They gave a coupon or a ticket which I can use during August. Now, when the ticket was issued as a free sample, free distribution. I don't know when I'm going to consume that particular ticket. Now, that ticket I can use either in Karnataka, Tamil Nadu, Kerala, Andhra, any point in time. So, in case of this free ticket, the point where I'm going to use, that will be my place of supply in case of a registered person. Now, Tirupati, let me come to your question to address this section 12, clause 9. In case of passenger transport service, issue of right to passage for future use point. What if future boarding point known like buying seasonal ticket from Delhi Metro by a person who came out of Delhi? We know boarding must be within the state of Union Territory or Delhi only. So this rule should apply when future boarding point not known within the more than one state. Now, in this case, Tirupati, I'll give an example. Say I have purchased a ticket in Rajdhani Express from Delhi to, say, Karnataka. When I purchase a ticket from Delhi to Karnataka, the IRCTC treats that it is a service rendered to Praveen, who is a registered person. The place of supply happens to be, say, Karnataka. For a moment, instead of boarding in Delhi, I have boarded in, say, Madhya Pradesh or Uttar Pradesh. Now, though I have boarded in Uttar Pradesh, the place of supply when the ticket was issued will be registered person. It is Karnataka. For a moment, if I change this question, say I was given a free ticket. Let's assume for a moment. Say IRCTC wants to give an incentive to their premium customers or loyal customers. My birthday, say for a moment, happens in January. Now they say, Praveen, since your birthday happens in January, we give a ticket which is worth 1,500 rupees. You can use for any point to any point. Now, when a ticket is issued, unless the journey takes place, they cannot determine the place of supply. If the person is registered, till the encashment of that ticket is going to happen, supply doesn't take place. Also, determination of place of supply, determination of my place of supply happens when the journey is going to get started. If I've done the ticket booking, say from Maharashtra to, say, Delhi, that point in time, they get to know service provider is in Maharashtra. And since I'm a registered person, it will be Karnataka. If I'm not a registered person, where I embark on this particular journey, that will be my place of supply. This is how we identify 12 subsection 9. Janaki is asking this question with respect to transportation of goods. Her question is, in case of 12.8b, that is in cases where the person other than a registered person, place where passenger embarks. Sorry, in case of person other than a registered person, location where the goods are handed over for transportation. Her question is, place of supply will be the location of supplier only, or right, as a supplier only will hand over the goods to transport. Yeah. In case of unregistered person, the place where I handed over my goods, that will be my place of supply. So example, Janvi, for a moment, say you happen to be hailing from Tamil Nadu. You travel all the way from Tamil Nadu to Delhi for pursuing your CA profession. Once you have qualified your CA profession, now you have decided to travel back to Tamil Nadu. Now you visit this VRL transport, says that, look, this is a consignment of my old used books. Please deliver this in Chennai, my residential. Look, you have given an address. Because the services are rendered from VRL to Janki, who is unregistered person, the place where you have handed over the goods, that should be the place of supply. So if the service provider is picking the goods in Maharashtra, that happens to be place of supply. It's not the place where the service provider is registered. The place where goods are handed over, that shall be my place of supply. Hope this is clear, Janaki. Continuation, she's asking this question. If transportation of goods at place outside India, place of destination will be place of supply. So the foreign location will be place of supply. Now, in case of transportation of goods, in like though it is going out of India, in relation to, like, you know, if service provider is in India, service recipient is in India. If both the people are in India, then my place of supply is identified as per section 12. Your question, in case if the goods are meant for outside India, now we have to examine, is the recipient of that service is in India or recipient of service is outside India? If recipient of service is in India, then section 12 gets triggered. If recipient is outside India, section 13 is going to get triggered. Wait and watch for another 30 minutes to get an answer for this question number 2, Janki. So with respect to question number 2, suppose for a moment, say Mansa wants to export this particular conservant. Say she has a friend of her who's pursuing CPA in US. So her friend is asking that I need this particular auditing material and accounts material. Please courier it to my location US. Now when Mansa does a courier, she goes to the transport and says, "Sir, this is my address. Please give the delivery at US. Service provider is in India. Service recipient is in India. Place of supply in relation to an unregistered person. The place where goods are handed over, that should be my place of supply. In case if the service recipient is outside India, then the transportation of goods, they say the location will be placed outside India. Now, there was one small amendment which happened in relation to this export case. This was the original provision. Let me come to a fresh slide to make you understand. Service provider and destination of goods. In 2019, this section 12 clause 8 was amended, where they say if service provider is in India, service recipient is also in India. Now, destination of goods alone is outside India. This is an exception where they say the place of supply shall be out of India. Shall be out of India. For a moment, let's say make an assumption. Say DHL. DHL happens to be a service provider, and XYZ Limited. XYZ Limited happens to be a recipient, service recipient. This XYZ Limited manufacture goods, and the goods are meant for delivery to their customer in Germany. In Germany. As for provisions of section 12, subsection 8, which is an amended provision, as on today for your examination purpose. Service provider is in India. The place of supply will be considered as Germany. It will be considered as Germany. Now, for the purpose of reporting this transaction, this DHL says that POS will be 96. That is outside territory, India. However, since the recipient is in India, section 12, subsection 8 will be triggered, where IGST will be charged. Now, for a moment, DHL is in Maharashtra. XYZ is also in Maharashtra. Service provider is in Maharashtra. XYZ Limited is in Maharashtra. But because the goods are meant for delivery out of India, my place of supply will be outside India. This is my state code. I report this as the place of supply outside India, and I would be charging IGST for this particular transaction. I will not, DHL will not claim this as export of service. Hope this is clear, Janki. Provisions of section 12(8), where the goods are meant for destination outside India. Tirupati and Janaki, let me know in case if you have any further doubts. Coming back, Pooja is asking this question. Place of supply in case of physical stock audit. place of supply in case of physical stock audit. Physical. I didn't understood your question, Pooja. If you can elaborate, I'll explain this little furthermore. Next, moving further, services provided on board or conveyance. In case of services rendered on board or conveyance, they say the first scheduled point of departure shall be considered as my place of supply, because services will be consumed across the journey. The first scheduled point of departure is my place of supply. Telecommunication service, I have explained in three categories: lease line, dedicated internet integrated circuit, or your broadband services, or your DTH. Where the installation happens, that will be my place of supply. In case of a postpaid service, where the address exists on records, that will be my place of supply. In case of prepaid services, maybe internet or mobile services, the point where the sale happens, that will be my place of supply. Banking or financial services, in general, they say address on record exists, that particular address will be taken into consideration for my place of supply. Insurance services, in case services are rendered to a registered person, that should be my place of supply. Unregistered person, the address which is available on record, that will be taken into consideration. Last but not least, 14, advertisement service. This advertisement service, they have identified on the basis of various modes. Maybe in a print media, maybe through telecommunication service, maybe delivery on a advertisement on a train or a bus, advertisement through pamphlet or brochures. Now they have identified a rule saying that look at the distribution on the basis of each state, how many circulations are going to happen. Based on that, you have to identify your place of supply. So cut short, these are the services we have discussed in our last session. Now let's have some examples discussed in this regard before we get into section 13. Hope you are able to see my Word document. Questions in relation to supply of goods, supply of services, section 10, section 12. These two provisions we are connected, we will understand for solving this problem. Question number 1. Sale of tiles and tubes by Mrs. Mechanic and Co., a registered person in Tamil Nadu, to a customer Mr. X for a sum of rupees 32,000. Mr. X sought for delivery of such tiles and tubes at his house in Bangalore. Bangalore happens to be in the state of Karnataka. In this case, what will be the place of supply? Will it be Tamil Nadu? Will it be Karnataka? Will it be none of the above? So here, there is a seller. The seller name is Mechanic & Co. This particular firm is selling tires and tubes for rupees 32,000 to a customer. X is not a registered person under GST law. So, applying provisions of 10, which provision you will apply in what will be the place of supply? Will it be Tamil Nadu, the registered place of this company, or will it be Karnataka, where X has sought for delivery? What will be your answer? Justify your answer with reasoning. Justify your answer with reasoning. I can see your answers. I'll wait for 1 more minute for discussion. Great. I have 2 answers. Balaji says Tamil Nadu. Janaki says Karnataka. Janaki says, Kaushik says it is not covered under 12, 3 to 14. Please look at your answer, Kaushiki, once again, because this is in relation to sale of goods. When I say sale of goods, section 10 comes into picture. Section 12 comes into picture when it is services. Janaki says Karnataka, Balaji says Tamil Nadu. Janaki is giving an explanation. Karnataka has termination of deliveries in Karnataka. Sriram says in the question, location of the recipient is not specified. Hence, place of supply shall be location of the supplier, that is Tamil Nadu. Good reasoning, Sriram, very good reasoning. Examination, right or wrong, this reasoning is something very, very important. Pooja says, suppose CA from Chennai. Okay. Pooja, I got your question. I'll take a minute to answer. Now, right answer for this particular question is the delivery, the movement of goods is getting terminated at Bangalore. So here, termination of goods for movement. When the supply happens, is the supply involving movement of goods? Answer is yes. When there is movement of goods, section 10, subsection 1, clause A has to be applied. Where is the termination happening? In the state of Karnataka, that is Bangalore. Because the moment is terminating in Bangalore, my place of supply happens to be Karnataka. This is your right answer. Now, Sriram, I come back to your reasoning. Sriram has given an explanation. In the question, location of the recipient is not specified. Hence, the place of supply shall be location of the supplier. With respect to movement of goods, Sriram, I have to look where the termination of movement is going to happen. In this case, the question says the termination is happening in Bangalore, that is in the state of Karnataka. That shall be my place of supply. Hope this explanation is clear, Sriram. Yes, Kaushik, your answer is right. Now, answer is easy. Now, couple of points for you for food for thought. When you conduct your internal audit, stock audit, or statutory audit, when there is a B2C transaction, documented proof for delivery. Now, how does you or I get to know that this entity called Mechanic & Co. have actually delivered the goods in the state of Bangalore? Did they raise e-way bill? Have they engaged a transporter? Did the transporter say the point of delivery is Bangalore? Was there any confirmation received from the customer? Now, some sort of documentary evidence is required to prove that the movement originated from Tamil Nadu and it stopped its movement in Karnataka. So this documentary evidence in relation to B2C is very, very important. In case of B2B, where the recipient is registered, we presume that goods are going to get the termination in that particular state. So B2B cases, generally there will not be any issue. B2C cases, you have a practical issue. Question number 2. For a moment, let's assume, say Sriram happens to be a accountant. Sriram has accounted this as a intra-state supply. He has charged SGST, CGST, Tamil Nadu. After a point in time, Sriram gets to know, I should have charged IGST, but by mistake I have charged CGST, SGST. Answer for that, don't worry. Make the proper remittance of tax called IGST. Whatever CGST, SGST you have remitted, claim a refund as per the provisions of section 77. Should I need to pay interest? Answer is no need to pay any interest. For the reason, 77 says that if you have interpreted the place of supply wrongly, instead of intra, you have considered as interstate, or instead of interstate, you have considered as intrastate supply. You make a proper remittance, claim a refund, and no need to pay your interest. So this is the answer with respect to all those B2B and B2C transactions. Now, there was one question which is asked by Pooja. Let me just answer that and let's go further in the questions. So Pooja is asking this question. Suppose a chartered accountant firm from Chennai allotted me a stock audit in Trichy. Actually, the stock audit is done for a CA firm in Delhi. Payment is done directly by Delhi firm to my account. I want to know the impact as per GST. Now, Very important, very practical question. Pooja is asking. Even Sriram is explaining the same in a different way. Stock audit is conducted at the premises of the client. The place of supply shall be place where the office is registered, or will it be additional place of business? Now, combination of these two, I'll put it this way. Where the services are rendered. Now, look at this from a section 12 point of view. Section 12, subsection 3 till subsection 14. Now, all across 3 to 14, nowhere this activity of audit is covered. I repeat. For the chartered accountant service, when it was stock audit, my professional audit which was conducted was not covered under section 12, subsection 3 till section 12, subsection 14. Nowhere it is covered. So what I will do, I'll come back to section 12, subsection 2, which is a general rule. As per this, if I've rendered services to a registered person, that shall be my place of supply. So answer to your question, Pooja, if the work order is given to me from Delhi office, say for a moment, Delhi, there is a company called ABB Limited. ABB Limited in Delhi has given a work order to my CA branch in Chennai. I have to conduct a stock audit in Trichy. Trichy and Chennai happens to be in Tamil Nadu. Since I have conducted a stock audit in Trichy, I'm going to give a report to Delhi office. I'm also going to give a bill report along with that bill to Delhi office. For me, for my record purpose, Delhi happens to be a recipient. Section 12, subsection 2. This is the answer, Pooja. Sriram is giving some explanation. In the question, it is told that Mr. X asked the delivery of goods at Bangalore. Question does not specifically mention whether X is registered or not. This is what I was referring to, Sriram. When you read section 10, hope you have your institute material along with you. When you read section 10, Sriram, nowhere in section 10 they refer, other than in clause B, other than 10(1)(b), this reference is taken to register person. In the given problem, registration status of X was not mentioned. X happens to be a customer. He was asking for delivery in Bangalore. So here you read 10(1)(a), where the supply involve movement of goods, whether by the supplier or recipient. In this case, Mechanic & Co. is causing the movement of goods. The place of supply of such goods shall be location of the goods at the time at which movement of goods terminate for delivery. Since the termination is happening for delivery in Bangalore, that is Karnataka, that shall be my place of supply. Hope this is clear, Sriram. Let's move on to the next question. Second question. Mrs. Shadi & Co., a registered person in Delhi. Mrs. Shadi Events & Co., a registered person in Delhi. They have got an order to organize a family function of Mr. and Mrs. Khanna at their residence in Haryana. Event management includes planning, decoration, food and beverage as a part of supply. Identify the place of supply. Because this event management company, Shadi & Co., they have mentioned that they are registered in Delhi. Shadi & Co., they are registered in Delhi. And this service is rendered to Mr. and Mrs. Khanna at their residence in Haryana. This is a given facts. Examine section 12. Examine all the clauses under which particular clause this activity can be touched upon. Is it Delhi? Is it Haryana? I can see answers. I'll wait for a couple more answers and then we'll have discussion. Right or wrong, make an attempt. That's the only way we will learn the sections, we will learn the provisions. Research and development, R&D should happen only in the classroom when we do the preparation, when we learn the subjects. Examination, there is no room for research and development. We have to be very sure in our examination. Now, Kaushik says 12 subsection 7 because to an unregistered person, Haryana. Janaki says Haryana because of 12 subsection 3. I was expecting this particular point. Tirupati says 12.7, recipient is unregistered. Place of supply should be Haryana. Anita says Haryana. Now, all of you have got Haryana as a place of supply. Absolutely right. Now, interestingly, I have seen that Janaki has touched upon this point called section 12, subsection 3. Now, all of you who are giving answers, just come to section 12, subsection 3. Place of supply of services. And in 12, subsection 3, look at your clause B. By way of lodging accommodation by a hotel in guest house. Now, this is not a accommodation service. So, it is ruled out. Clause C. By way of accommodation in any immovable property for organizing any marriage or reception or a event. Now, in this case, they have clearly mentioned that for family function at their residence, This is a catch point, Janaki. Kanna and Kanna have not sought for immovable property. They haven't said, look, we wanted to have this, say, 50 years of our birthday celebration at, say, this Connaught Place in Delhi, or maybe Taj Mahal, or maybe in Mumbai. This the Taj Heritage is there. They didn't choose a particular premises. They have said that the event should be done at their residence in Haryana. So accordingly, it is not 12 subsection 3, Janaki. It will be 12 subsection 7, where organizing of a cultural, artistic, sporting event in relation to a unregistered person other than a registered person shall be place where event is actually held. Because this event is actually held in the residence at Haryana, Haryana happens to be my place of supply. This is the answer. Hope this is clear, Janaki. And learning from here, answer is clear, but audit point of view, when we happen to be a GST auditor, when we get into practice, when we be an internal auditor, or when we become a CFO of a particular group of companies, how do we evaluate this contract? How do I know that this is an event management which is falling into entry number 7? Most of us have said organizing a cultural or another event. So when I say it is an event, do we have a written contract? Like we have a peer review. Most of us, when we are in a CFM, some of you would have attended to documentation for a peer review. The same way, the contract is something which is important. Was there a contract between the service provider and the customer saying that this is a requirement by Kanna and Kanna for an event which is being conducted over there? Then also the place where the event is held after a span of 2 years for record purpose, for when you raise this invoice, when we report this particular transaction in table number 3.2 of GST and 3B, this is where the auditors are going to come and ask, Mrs. Shadi Events & Co., please let me know why it should not be SGST, CGST of Delhi, why it is charged as IGST of Haryana. Unless you prove, I don't consider that this is a IGST transaction. So documentary evidence is something which is important for us to examine. I would recommend, I would have bills where I would have procured local supplies, I would have obtained a catering service, I would have transported. So all these are the bills which are required for me to establish that actually the event took place in my Haryana. Then let's move on to question number 3. The place of supply shall be relevant for point number A. Determination of delivery of goods or services alone. They are saying that my place of supply will be helpful for determining the delivery of goods or delivery of services alone. Point number B. Determination of nature of supply. My place of supply will be helpful for identifying nature of supply. Clause C, none of the above. What would be your answer? What would be your answer? Sriram, I got your question, Sriram. I'll answer this question and I'll give an explanation for your doubt. Good to see the reasoning, very, very detailed manner. You're examining the provisions. It is indicating that whatever internship you've learned, you're applying the concepts for examples from your learning. Give me a minute. I'll explain in detail, Sriram. Janaki says point number A. Jahnavi says determination of nature of supply, that is B. Kaushiki says B. Tirupati says A and B both. Okay, now look at the point number A. Determination of delivery of goods. Now, when I say delivery of goods, in case of goods, when we talk about clause C, where there is no movement of goods. Clause D, where installation happens at a site. So, my place of supply is not only for delivery, it is for even other events also. Also, fagging of this point, you can see this term called alone. I cannot use place of supply only for delivery of goods. I cannot use my place of supply for delivery of goods. So accordingly, you will score out. This is irrelevant. In your examination, law of elimination. When you have to choose among multiple choice questions, eliminate the non-convincing factor. Once you eliminate non-convincing factor, what is remaining? That would be your answer. So in A, because they've used a term called alone, it is not a right answer. Determination of nature of supply. Answer is yes. I use my place of supply for identifying intrastate supply or interstate supply. So this would be my right answer. Because it is a convincing factor, I'll not choose none of them. Hope this is clear for all of you. Now, before going further, Sriram is asking this question in relation to question number 1. For a moment, if you presume that Mr. X is a registered person under GST, and Sriram is giving this question this way. For a moment, Sriram is making an assumption. X is registered in Tamil Nadu. This Mechanic & Co. is also registered in Tamil Nadu. But X is asking for delivery in the state of Karnataka. Now here, Sriram, I apply the provisions of 10(1)(b). There are 3 parties. 1, seller of goods, Mechanic & Co. in Tamil Nadu. 2, recipient in Karnataka, in Bengaluru. 3, X, who has given an instruction for delivery. When I apply 10(1)(b), at the instance of Mr. X, the movement of goods is happening to Bengaluru, delivery is happening in Bengaluru. Accordingly, the place where X is registered, that shall be my place of supply. So what I will do, service the seller, Mechanic & Co., he'll say, registered person is in Tamil Nadu, place of supply is in Tamil Nadu, he'll charge SGST, CGST. In turn, X, when the movement of goods is happening to Karnataka, assuming it is for a customer called Mr. Y, X will raise an invoice on Y called IGST. So the movement of goods, I believe Tirupati has this similar question in the previous class. So here, the consumption-based taxation, because from Mechanic & Co. point of view, the customer is X. The consumption is happening in Tamil Nadu. So he charges SGST, CGST. From X point of view, consumption is happening to a customer called Y in Karnataka. So X charges IGST for Mr. Y. So that's how that ultimate tax is traveling back to Karnataka. Hope I've explained your point, Sriram. Let's go further. Point number 4. Question number 4. Mrs. Hungry Solutions, a registered person in Goa. Hungry Solutions, a registered person in Goa, undertake food catering for family functions and large gatherings. Determination of place of supply shall be on the basis of location of service provider, Location of service recipient. Location where services are actually performed. What would be your answer? In relation to this activity called catering service, food supply, what would be the basis? Will the place of supply be identified on the basis of location of supplier of goods, service provider, or location of recipient, or on the basis of performance? Place where services are actually performed. What would be your answer? Viraj, for question number 3, your answer is incorrect, ma. Hope you have understood why A is incorrect and why B is the right answer. Piram, please re-examine your answer for question number 3. I've referred to the term alone. We cannot block the answer. We cannot block the concept for a restricted usage. The concept has to apply for a broader perspective. Interpretation of provisions. We have to see the flow of concepts. I cannot use place of supply only for that, only for delivery. So accordingly, B should be the answer. Janvi, I gave answer for this question where while answering to Sriram, I've given explanation that in case if this X is also registered in Tamil Nadu, I've given an explanation. Hope you are clear with that explanation. If not, you can let me know. I'll explain once again, Janvi. Good. Kaushiki says it is 4C, that is as per 12.4, right answer. Vida C is right answer. Virat C is also right answer. Janki says location where service is actually performed, right answer. Namrata says A, not right, ma. Please examine. Tirupati says 12.2 is also not correct, ma. Now, right answer will be as per provisions of section 12, subsection 4. Please look into your institute material. Place of supply of restaurant, catering services, personal grooming, fitness, beauty treatment, health service, including cosmetic and plastic surgery, shall be location where services are actually performed. So as per provisions of section 12, subsection 4, my answer will be where services are performed. Now, if further you are asked this question, what will be the place of supply in case if the catering services are rendered to a registered person? Will my answer change? Will my answer change if the services are rendered to a registered person? Will answer change if the services are rendered to a registered person? Balaji says no. Srini says no. Kaushiki says still same answer. Definitely yes. My answer remains the same. You're right, Kaushiki, Balaji, and Srinidhi. All cases, in case of 12.4, performance is where I have to look into my place of supply. Now, there's one further doubt from Shrira for question number 4. Location where services are actually performed. Since in the question location of recipient of location of performance. 4C. Let me just see that. Yes, Sriram, your answer is right, ma. Reasoning is also perfect. Very elaborative. Sriram, only one caution. Sriram, only one caution. Don't to be too much of elaboration. Restrict to the answer. Like it's good. It's good. Theory is always good, but see if it can be reduced to some extent. Next, moving further. Point number 5. Mrs. Richie Rich Tour Planners, a registered person in Tamil Nadu. So there's a service provider called Richie Rich Tour Planners. They are registered in Tamil Nadu. Okay. Have arranged a religious trip to 5 historical places, 3 in India, 2 outside India, for a total gathering of 40 people. All the passengers have availed the above service in their individual capacity. Reference to the term individual capacity is important. Examine the GST provisions for determination of place of supply. Examine the GST provisions for determination of place of supply. So, what would be your place of supply? Which provision under section 12 we will take into consideration in case of this tour planning activity? Janavi, I got your question mark. I'll give a detailed explanation. Just I'll explain this question number 5 and then I'll give a detailed explanation. I could see a very detailed reasoning is being got into both Sriram and Janavi. Good. Your reasoning skills are very good. So, Kaushiki says 12-9 passenger transportation service. Virat says Tamil Nadu, place of tour planner. Which provision, Viraj? If you can quote the provision, I'll help you to understand in a better fashion. Tirupati says 12-2. Okay. This is one question I am getting all different answers. Nevertheless, I'll wait for a couple of answers more. Janil says in case of availability of records, India, where the services are actually performed, outside India, where recipient of outside India, place of recipient of service. Okay. Janaki says for places in India, place of service will be location of place, and 2 places outside India, place of supply of the recipient, as per 12 subsection 4. Okay. Janaki says 12-3. 12-3 is in relation to immovable property. Okay. Now, let's come back to the question once again to understand. Richie Rich, a tour planner. Richie Rich is a tour planner. They have arranged a religious trip. Now, all of you, please refer to entry number 7. 12. Section 12, subsection 7. Place of supply services provided by way of organizing cultural, artistic, sporting, scientific, educational, entertainment event including a supply of services in relation to conference, fair, exhibition, celebration, or similar events, or services ancillary to organizing any of the events of referred to clause A, assigning of sponsorship of such events. In case if it is rendered to a registered person, that shall be the location. To a person other than a registered person shall be the place where event is actually held. And if the event is held outside India, place of supply shall be location of recipient. So here, because it's a religious trip, I can call this as a event. It is organizing a cultural or something entertainment related activity. It's a cultural event, we can say. Where there's a Gana Bajana, where there's a devotional aspects, a lot of things together. So, provisions of section 12, subsection 7 can be invoked. Now, important aspect, when services are performed in India, it says that shall be place of supply. Where the services are rendered outside India, the provision to section 12, subsection 7, they say, the place of supply shall be location of recipient. So when the services are rendered to these 40 people, on record, whatever address is available with Richie Rich, that shall be my place of supply. So if assuming they have charged, say 5 lakhs, like assuming like 5 places, 1 lakh for each place. So what they will do, each place for each 1 lakh, I'll identify place of supply, I'll bill accordingly. For these 2 places outside India, I'll consider for a sum of rupees 2 lakhs as a place where these 40 people hail from. Now, this is the complexity what we have in relation to tour operators. So the practical issues we have is availability of address on record. So most of the cases, what they have, they will do is they take a record, they create a particular what you call client history for each particular trip. They take the list of passengers, name of the passenger, along with that their address proof. Whenever they raise an invoice, along with that, they place the Aadhaar card or any other document which is given as a identity proof. Also, in addition to that, whatever tickets were booked, like say Kashi or Amarnath or say Sri Lanka or say Singapore, wherever they have traveled, the copy of those tickets also will be placed as a documentary evidence to establish this at a point of time in the department audit. Reason, right now when we are studying as a theory, all of us can answer this. But practically when the audit happens, to establish this place of supply, these documentary evidences are something which are very, very important together. Also, in case of this tour operator where a religious trip is conducted, I have to consider the provisions of section 8, where Vignesh sir has explained in the previous class, composite supply, mixed supply. It's a trip which is called as a composite supply, where food is provided, accommodation is provided, your forex is handled, arranging a guide. All this together, I call this as an event. So accordingly, answer will be provisions of section 12, subsection 7. Now, Janani is asking one interesting question, where she says in example number one, for a moment, this, let me come to example number 1 so that you'll all understand this. She says, for a moment, if we presume that this Mr. X happens to be a registered person in Tamil Nadu, X is asking for his personal consumption in Karnataka. Now, seller's point of view, when X declares himself as a registered person and X gives a instruction to deliver in Bangalore. Now, Mechanic and Co, who happens to be the seller, is least bothered whether this is a lower input tax credit, whether it is a block credit, whether it is for personal consumption. All these are the aspects which have to be examined at the buyer end. So Janani is asking this question. So when Mr. X is a registered person in Tamil Nadu and is giving instruction to give a delivery in Karnataka, will I not apply provisions of 10(1)A rather than 10(1)B? So here, Janani, provisions of 10(1)B comes into picture. 3-party. Seller, recipient, and a third party called registered person. The third party is giving instruction to deliver to a recipient at Karnataka. So when 10(1)B is more specific, Mrs. Mechanic and Co. will not examine 10.1a, rather they will go with 10.1b. Though the delivery is happening, provisions of this bill to ship to is something which is coming into picture. If this recipient, though X is a recipient, now is X receiving in Karnataka, when X is registered in Tamil Nadu, there will be no point why X will be registering in Karnataka. So this analysis point of view, bill to ship to, bill to Mr. X in Tamil Nadu, ship to delivery in Karnataka. Then 10.1b provisions comes into picture. Application of place of supply, the place where Mr. X is registered, that gets into picture. This is answer to your question, Janami. Next. This is the last question for the day. XYZ, a consultancy. XYZ consultancy, he is an architect registered in the state of Haryana. So this firm of consultants is registered in Haryana. Has provided design and drawings in relation to a property which is owned by Mr. Harish. Harish is a resident of Rajasthan. Harish is a resident of Rajasthan. This drawings were provided in relation to a property in the state of West Bengal. In the state of West Bengal. So in this case, what shall be place of supply? I repeat this question. XYZ Consultancy and Co., an architect registered in Haryana, has provided design and drawing services in relation to a property in the state of West Bengal. These services are given to Mr. Harish, who happens to be a resident of Rajasthan. So what shall be the place of supply? Will it be Haryana? Will it be Rajasthan? Will it be West Bengal? What will be your place of supply? Janaki, that's what I was referring to. When you look at this composite supply, what is the intent of this supply? Was this only a hotel accommodation, or what is the principal supply? Arranging this religious trip is a intent of this supply, which is called as a principal supply. Food, accommodation, guide, all these are ancillary to this main event. So that's how instead of 12.3, we will go with 12.7. Hope this is clear, Janaki. I think Janaki is also answering 12.3 for question number 5. Please revisit Janaki once again. Sriram, for your question, answer is 10.1a, because on record X is not registered because the delivery is happening in the state of Karnataka. Place of supply happens to be 10.1a. 10.1b will be referred when there is a bill to ship to where this is a registered person, principal place of business of such third person. So when the third person is registered, then I'll invoke 10.1b. So here 10.1a comes into picture, Sriram. Kaushik is giving this answer. West Bengal. Namrata says West Bengal. Okay. Tirupati says falls under 12.3. Place of supply West Bengal. Perfectly correct. Pooja also says, Pooja says 12.3. Okay. Good. Answer is West Bengal. Pooja, please revisit once again. Please revisit your answer once again. Is it now? In case of a immovable property, they say, please refer to section 12, subsection 3, where the services are rendered in relation to immovable property, shall be location at which such immovable property or boat or vessel, as the case may be, is located or intended to be located. Since the immobile property is located in West Bengal, my place of supply happens to be West Bengal. So answer will be West Bengal. Hope this is clear for all of you. From here, I'll come back to my today's topic. Constitutional background, I have explained in the previous class. Article 286 also we have touched upon. Now, cross-border transactions. Preamble for today's discussion, cross-border transactions, import and export. We have read schedule number 3 of CGST Act. As with the provisions of schedule number 3, the activities of schedule 3 will be considered neither as supply of goods nor supply of services. In schedule number 3, entry number 8, supply of goods before the goods hit the territorial waters. Supply of goods before the goods are clear for home consumption when they are in the customs bonded premises. Those are connected provisions which are connected with this section 11 and section number 13. Section 11, I deal in relation to import and export of goods. Section 13, I deal with my services. Now, some of important definitions. This definition, import of goods, export of goods, examination, expect 1 mark MCQ question or maybe no doubt 3 marks customs law, 3 marks could be a question. Define the term import of goods. Define India. Define the territorial waters of India. These are the theory questions which can also be tested for 3 marks. Now, import of goods with its grammatical variations and complete expressions means bringing goods into India. Bringing goods into India. This is a crux. Whenever goods are brought into India, I can call that as my import into India. Import of goods. Examination, if you asked for 3 marks, please don't write 1 full pager. Write only this definition. This is good enough. Just to test your concepts, maybe tested for 3 marks also. Final level, expect unexpected questions. Don't judge on the basis of the 3 marks. Should I elaborate entire 1 full page? Export of goods with its grammatical variations and complete expressions means taking goods out of India. Goods into India, out of India. To a place outside India. This is called export of goods. Now, when we read this term export of goods, section 16 of IGST Act, section 16 of IGST Act, zero rated supply. My zero rated supply has got a coverage for exports, has also coverage for SEZ supply. So when I say exports, it says exports means goods taken out of India. Unless the goods go out of India, I cannot call it as exports. Limited purpose for zero rated supply, supplies to SEZ, though this is within India, though the goods reside within India, I call this as a zero rated supply. So don't get confused with respect to exports and a zero rated supply. Next, export of services. This is one particular important definition. You get into practice, you have to deal with in your audit. You get into industry, you have to deal with this when you have this foreign currency exposure, export of services. So we'll understand this definition, importance of this definition, and then we get into the other provisions. My export shall be mean to be an export when supplier of services in India, recipient of services outside India. Basic expectation. To call as an export, my customer should be outside India. Then, place of supply of service is outside India. To examine this, my provisions of section 13 comes into play. Only when these two exist, I travel to section 13. If supplier is in India, recipient is also in India, I don't call that as a export of service. Please keep in mind, students, there is a lot of difference between zero rated supply and export. So whenever we refer to export, please keep in mind export means taking out of India, services traveling out of India. This is a broader view which you need to understand. Wherever they have used the term export, please read with a restricted point of view. So here, third point says the place of supply as per section 13 should be outside India. Point number 4, payment of such service has been received by the supplier of service in convertible foreign exchange or INR. INR is an exception. INR is an exception where when it is permitted by RBI. When it is permitted by RBI. Only when there is a permission as per FEMA regulations, RBI provisions, I receive money in INR. Example, money received in Vostro account, money deposited in Vostro account in INR. Vostro account in INR. Where this generally gets deposited, from an overseas account, As per FEMA regulations, when money gets deposited through a Vostro account from an account which is maintained in overseas, then that money received into India will also be considered as my receipt in foreign currency. So here, money received in INR for the services rendered to Nepal, Bhutan. That is one another exception. For the purpose of export of services, generally, money should have been received in convertible foreign currency, where bank realization certificate or FIRC has to be provided as a documentary evidence. I repeat, bank remittance certificate, inward bank remittance certificate, or foreign inward receipt is to be provided. Then, supplier of service and the recipient of service are not mere establishments of a distinct person in accordance with explanation number 1. Now, this is one point one of the students asked in the previous class. Distinct person, establishments of a distinct person. The term fixed establishment I have explained in the previous class. The term distinct person is something which is originated as per provisions of section 25. As per provisions of section 25. Fixed establishment or establishment. My term fixed establishment, can refer to a temporary place of business or a branch Now, this particular fixed establishment or establishment, generally, whenever we talk, PAN will be same. So here, for a moment, when we are dealing with export of services, say there is a service which is exported to, say, service provider is a registered person in Maharashtra. Service recipient is in Singapore. This recipient is into activity of, say, consulting engineer. So there are some drawings provided to entity in Singapore. Now, assuming this is a project which is having a tenure for 2 years. For ease of coordination or liaising, what is done? So there is a branch which is incorporated in Singapore. Why? Always physical interaction, supervision at site, inspection, all this happens easy when there's a branch in Singapore. Instead of traveling from Maharashtra to Singapore, all the cases. So here, this registered person in Maharashtra, and this branch in Singapore, these two entities will be called as distinct persons. This will be called as distinct persons for the purpose of section 25, for the purpose of GST provisions. That means to say, I cannot export to myself. A registered person cannot export to itself. So any money for a moment received from the branch to this registered person in Maharashtra, this cannot be called as export. This cannot be termed as export. So it is making a clarification that, look, when you have a branch overseas, when you have an entity overseas, which is called as a distinct person, I cannot call as an export of services. Now, this is one particular explanation which is given in this particular definition. So what if it is not a branch, rather this is a different entity registered in Singapore. That means to say, as with the provisions of Singapore regulations, a new entity has come into picture. When a new entity comes into picture, this entity in India is different. This entity in Singapore is different. Then all the transactions which happens between Maharashtra and this entity will be a independent transactions. So this is a thin line of difference with respect to export of services. Let me see if there are any doubts in this regard. Namrata is asking, so what do you mean by cognate expression? Cognate expression is a strict interpretation. I have to read in this particular fashion. Coming back. Import of service. Now, export we have understood as per section 2, clause C. Now, I go on to import of service. It means supply of any service where supplier of services outside India, recipient of services in India. Now, this is an obvious interpretation. The service provider is outside India. Recipient is within India. Then, place of supply of services is in India. I draw provisions as per section 13. Now, if you look at these two, either of service provider or service recipient. Either of service provider or service recipient is outside India, and the other party is in India. In these cases, they say the place of supply, if it happens to be India, then I call this as an import of service. Next. Location of supplier of service, we have discussed. Location of recipient of service, this also we have discussed in the previous class. Fixed establishment, I've explained this, this term fixed establishment. Once again, I'll just recap this term. It means a place other than a registered place of business. It means a place. Now, this is a prominence other than the registered place of business. Which is characterized by a sufficient degree of permanence. That means there is an identity, there is an address, there is a physical existence and suitable structure. Whenever I say a fixed establishment, take an example. So when there is a road construction happening, I have a temporary tent. Now, why do I use this temporary hut or temporary tent? I call that as an establishment where I use it for my project survey purpose. Now, question comes here. Will there be a door number? Will there be an address? Now, generally, these establishments, there is no identity. It is a temporary structure. Like I was giving example, when I'm doing a road construction, every 2 kilometers, I have a temporary warehouse for storing my this tools and space. My site engineers will be stationed temporarily for supervision purpose. Once that stretch is over, again I shift this temporary hut to another 2 kilometers. Now, when I am laying a road, is there a door number? Is there a location? Is there identity? It may not be there, but a degree of permanence is there. A suitable structure exists. Why this suitable structure exists? In terms of human habitat, for human or technical resources, either to supply service or to receive services and use the services for its own needs. So I call this as a fixed establishment for the purpose of having this particular identity at that particular place. Then next definition called intermediary. Now this term intermediary is little important from provisions of section 13 subsection 8. I'll skip this definition at this point in time. When I come to section 13 subsection 8, I'll explain in detail what we need to understand from this particular definition. Now, students, we are at 7:35. Let's have 10 minutes break. Let's resume back at 7:45. Before we start with this import and export, couple of questions are there. I'll answer and then we'll go further. Janki is asking this question: can holding and subsidiary can be a distinct person? Holding and subsidiary can be a distinct person. No, man. Distinct person should be a person who have same PAN. Identity is same. If I have different establishment, that means to say different entity. Two different entities, I cannot call as a distinct person. Now, this term distinct person came from section 25. Like, I have registration in 5 different states. One state to another state, when I make a supply, I call myself as a distinct person. Having same PAN, but different GST number. So for a moment, TVS, when they transfer goods from, say, Tamil Nadu to Maharashtra, their own branch called stock transfer. Because they have same PAN, I call that as distinct person. If the entity itself is different, like TVS Private Limited, or say one more entity called Infosys Limited. Now, Infosys Limited and TVS Limited, because both having separate PAN, they will be called as a distinct person. Sriram is asking this question: does fixed establishment mean a temporary place of business? A casual taxable person take GST registration on this basis only. Now, the purpose of fixed establishment, Sriram, is to say that the services are received at an establishment which is generally called as a fixed establishment, where it is other than the additional place of business. Now, in case of a casual taxable person, I don't have any fixed establishment. What I'll say, look, I'm doing a trade, I'm conducting a particular business. At this particular premises, I wanted to conduct business. So CTP does not deal with my fixed establishment. In case of a CTP, I don't even declare this fixed establishment. I don't even need to say that, right? That's the purpose of my CTP. Coming back, place of supply of goods under section 11, which is in relation to import and export. If the goods are imported into India, the place of supply shall be location of importer. Location of importer. This is the important point. They say, under the DGFT provisions, importer has got multiple addresses, and this multiple addresses, they have one identity called IEC. However, whatever GST number you have registered, this GST number will be available on IceGate portal. IceGate portal. So here, when I import material into India, take example Maruti Suzuki Limited. Maruti Suzuki Limited has got 5 places where they have GST number. So whenever IEC number is quoted, along with IEC, the respective state where the imports is going to take place, that is called location of importer. Now, why is it important? IGST, when I have to charge IGST, identity, the location of importer on the basis of GST number is important. So what if GST number is not there? IEC number is there, address is available. The address connected with IEC, that will be called as my location of the importer. Next, export from India shall mean taking the goods outside India. Taking the goods to a location outside India. So here I refer to the provisions of section 7, which deals with my interstate supply. So whenever goods are traveling outside India, I call that as a interstate supply, because the place of supply is outside India. This is very simple provision, 11 and 12. So if the goods are coming into India, it is an import. If the goods are going out of India, it's called export. In case of import and export, identification of a person for the purpose of IGST, for the purpose of interstate supply, they have explained. Very short and sweet provision. Now, section 13, as I have been telling, this section 13 gets triggered or gets applied for what? For identification of place of supply. Identification of place of supply, where it is in relation to a service, in case where either the supplier or recipient is outside India, where location of the supplier or location of the recipient is outside India. Look at the language. They have not used and. It is or. Either of the person is outside India. Now, in that case, I refer to the provisions of section 13. I refer to the provisions of section 13. What happens if supplier is in India? I'll come to a different slide to explain this. Service provider, service recipient. Scenario 1. In India, service recipient outside India. Scenario 2. Outside India, service recipient in India. Now, when service provider is in India and the recipient is outside India, for the purpose of export, I try to examine my place of supply. When the service provider is outside India and recipient is in India, then for the purpose of import, I try to examine my place of supply. I repeat this point again. Service provider is outside India. Service recipient is in India. Can I call that as an import? If I say it is import, then I have to pay tax under reverse charge. Now, for these purposes, we travel to section 13 for determination of my place of supply. One of the condition is either of these two parties is outside India. Now, I'll give a simple example why we need to examine and understand these provisions in detail. For a moment, XYZ Limited, say they're a registered party in Tamil Nadu. One of their employee, Mr. X, travels to Germany for a business meet purpose, and he stays in a hotel for 5 days during a meet. Now, this hotel, the service provider will be based in Germany. Service provider will be based from Germany. Right? So, when I look into this scenario number 2, service provider is outside India, service recipient is in India. Can I call this as import of service? When I say import of service, tax needs to be paid on RCM basis. For these provisions, my place of supply is very, very essential. Very, very essential. Please remember, when we read the definition called import of services, I say the place of supply happens to be India. Either of the parties outside India, place of supply has to be India. Then it's called import of service. Now, in this case, when I explain these provisions of section 13, whatever doubts you have, whatever practical business cases you have come across, we can get an answer to those questions. Coming back, section 13 is the purpose of section 13 is where one of the parties is outside India. In this, like section 12, there is a general rule which is called subsection 2. Other than services which are listed in entry number 3 to entry number 13, the place of supply shall be location of the recipient of service where address is available. In any other case, location of supplier of service. So here, they are not referred to registered person. Now, why they are not referred to a registered person? In case of this section 13, either of the party is outside India. When either of the party is outside India, registration may be there, may not be there. So for that reason, in general, they have said under subsection 2, the place of supply of services, except the services in list subsection 3 to 13, the place of supply shall be location of recipient of service. Where the location of recipient of service is not available in ordinary course of business, the place of supply shall be location of the supplier of service. Now, location of supplier of service, location of recipient of service. Take example. Say there is a online rummy. Online, say betting. not gambling, online betting, maybe horse betting or online coaching or training. Now, in these all cases, generally the identity of a recipient may not be known. Recipient may not be known because, say for a moment, let's assume that some of you is interested in Carnatic music. Say the citizens who have traveled abroad, they wanted to learn this Indian Carnatic music. Now, for a moment, let's assume Mansa is an expert in Carnatic music. She says, I'll conduct online classes. So there are people who have shown interest in that. She has got a YouTube page where she says, I conduct online classes, say morning 10 o'clock and evening 5 o'clock. So people make a payment, say $5 US, $10 US, depending on the time, depending on the age group and all. Mansa charges various amounts. For Mansa, she doesn't even know. The person is from India, the person is outside India. Money comes in foreign currency, money comes in INR. So all these cases, this general rule says, place of supply shall be location of recipient. Location of recipient. When it will be location of recipient? If it is available. If this location is available. If the location is not available, then location of supplier will be my place of supply. This is a general rule. Now, section 13, subsection 3 talks about performance-based services, where services are rendered in relation to goods. Services are rendered in relation to goods, where these goods are to be made physically available. The goods are to be made physically available, either by the supply, it should be made available to the supplier of that service, either by the recipient or any person acting on behalf of the particular supplier. So, wherever the goods are to be made physically available, then the law says that, the provision says that, place of supply shall be the place where actual performance happens. The place shall be actual place where performance happens. Now, so what if this service on goods is rendered electronically? If I render the services electronically, then place of supply shall be the place where goods are available. Where the goods are available remotely, that shall be my place of supply. So here in simple terms, they say performance based, where the goods are to be made physically available to the by the recipient to the service provider. I'll give one example to have a better understanding on this point. Say XYZ Limited is an importer. ABC Inc. is a seller in US. XYZ Limited, assuming a registered person in Rajasthan. Now, this XYZ Limited has imported a plant and machinery, and during installation, there is a malfunction. There is a malfunction. This particular malfunction has to be attended by ABC Limited. Now, when ABC Limited has to perform option one, visit India and do the repair. Option two, remotely through electronic mode. Now, here they say that wherever like this performance is being done, in this case, performance, service provider is in US, service recipient is in India. Why? In the process of this installation, if there's any malfunction, and ABC charges some money for this particular service repair related activity. in these cases, they say, identify the location where the performance is done. If the performance is done in India, place of supply happens to be India. If the performance is done remotely, then the goods, the point in time where goods are available, that will be my place of supply. Hope this place of supply is clear, students. Section 13, subsection 3. Sumit, you can, every topic is a new topic, Sumit. It's not compulsory that you have to come from the beginning. Whatever classes you are joining, that will be crystal clear for you to understand the concept. And these sessions are recorded and stored on ICA website. Any point in time, you can download or view the previous sessions also, ma'am. So every session, it's a new learning for you. Tirupati is asking this question. Importer location is Maharashtra, but goods imported at Chennai port. What would be the place of supply? Now, in case if the goods are imported at Chennai, what is the GST number given is important, Tirupati. If the goods are imported for the purpose of transportation from Chennai to Maharashtra, then importer will be Maharashtra. Now, at times it so happens, like Tirupati asked a practical question. Say, register person, for a moment, let's assume that say XYZ Limited is registered in Maharashtra. The goods were imported at Chennai port. What will be the place of supply? Though the goods are imported at Chennai, because it is for, say, Gujarat, the place of supply happens to be Gujarat. The identity of the importer who pays the customs duty, using the IEC, using the GST number of Maharashtra or Gujarat, if I pay, that will be my place of supply. Just because the goods have been downloaded in Tamil Nadu, it will not be called as place of supply. I'll come back. Now, continuation of this provision, they say, so what if the goods are temporarily imported into India? If goods are temporarily imported into India, these two provisions does not get applied. If the goods are temporarily imported in India for repairs or for any treatment or process, then this provision will not be applied for purpose of identifying my place of supply. I'll give an example. Say, there's one notification called 158 of 95 under customs law. This is there under customs law. As per this notification, there's a exemption. There is an exemption from payment of customs duty. From payment of customs duty. I'll explain this example where it will be very clear for you. Say for a moment, there is a seller. There is a seller and there is a buyer. Seller XYZ Limited, registered person in Kerala. The seller has developed a semiconductor. This semiconductor was sold to a customer called, say, Mr. A in, say, Singapore. This particular point in time, when the semiconductor was sold, XYZ Limited says that 2 years warranty. 2 years warranty means any damage, any malfunction, please send it back. I will do repair and I'll send back. Now, there could be some charges which are free. There could be some charges which are chargeable, or I would say billable. There could be billable. When it could be billable, say some spare parts or some items are replaced as a part of my repair related activity. Now, assuming for a moment, this cost of semiconductor is say 1,000 USD, 1,000 Singapore dollars. 1,000 Singapore dollars. Now, 2021, say these goods were exported to Mr. A. After a point in time, say 6 months, after 6 months, there was a complaint, there was a malfunction. After 6 months, the goods have to be returned to India. Returned to India. Now, when the goods are entering to the customs, always customs officer will say, why are you importing these goods? When you are importing goods into India, it will be called as import. It will be called as import. XYZ Limited will say, sir, these goods are coming into India for the purpose of repair activity. Also, then customs authority will say, okay, if you have an identity to prove, then prove that this goods have come temporarily to India for repair and to be sent back. That point in time, this notification 15895, when I take classes on customs, I'll explain in detail where one more notification called 45 of 2017 is there. 45 of 2017 under customs. So these two provisions, I'll explain how customs duty can be saved on imports. For this limited purpose, now these goods have come to India. Now what is happening here? These goods will be brought to premises of XYZ Limited. Repair will be done, and these goods will be sent back to Singapore. Now, as per provisions of section 13, subsection 3. Now here what is happening? The goods are made physically available. Goods are made physically available. Physically available. So when goods are made physically available, there is a performance done by XYZ Limited. Now here section 13 says the place of performance. The place of supply shall be location where goods are situated at the time of supply of services. But one exception to this provision is temporarily imported for these goods are temporarily imported into India for repairs and re-exported. Repairs and re-exported. This is one condition. Second, continuation. Without put to use. Without put to use. So these goods which have come into India should have been repaired. Those goods should have been repaired and exported back. While exporting back, I should not have put to use those goods in India. So if these two conditions are satisfied, then section 12 subsection 3 is not applicable. Section 12 subsection 3 not applicable. That means to say place of supply is not covered here. Where will I go? General rule, maybe section 13 subsection 2. So I have written 12, it should be 13. Section 13 subsection 3 is not applicable. I may travel back to section 13 subsection 2. Now, this is one particular provision. Expect 3 marks question in your examination. Reason. Practically, lot of cases we don't understand how do we examine this import of service, export of service. So one question is definitely whenever the place of supply is touched. Section 12 is quite easy. Section 13, when they touch, the section 13 subsection 3 is one aspect they are going to touch upon. Let me see if there are any questions on this section 13 subsection 3. Hope this is clear. Great. Now, let's come back further. So, performance based, wherever the activity is performed, that will be my place of supply. If the activity is done remotely, then where the goods are available, that will be my place of supply. Temporarily imported into India, then this provision is not applicable. Where will I fit in? Go back to 13, go back to subsection 2. Next. So what if services supplied to an individual which require physical presence of recipient, which require services are rendered to individual which require physical presence of the recipient. A simple example. Take example, there is a some surgery needs to be done, plastic surgery. So there is a expert in Mumbai. There's one of the patient from say Japan is coming to India. Now this is a case where services are rendered to an individual which require physical presence of the recipient. So though the customer is from Japan, though money comes in foreign currency, because the performance is done in India, that will be my place of supply. Ulta. So what if the say like most of these what do you call public servants, any of these public servants, like we have these so-called MPs, MLAs, or film actors, whenever some health issues come, they always travel to US or Singapore. Now, when they travel to Singapore, when they travel to US, say a registered person is in India, is traveling abroad, what would be the place of supply? Because the hospital, the plastic surgery is being done in Singapore and the performance requires the physical presence, and this individual is there in Singapore, place of supply happens to be Singapore. If place of supply happens to be India, then it will be called as import of service. I'll give you one example here to have a better clarity. Say, let's take example of Mr. X. Mr. X. Mr. X is a registered person in Maharashtra and he happens to be a celebrity. Mr. X travels to US for some say plastic surgery, some surgery, and he incurs a sum of rupees $10,000. $10,000. This $10,000 is booked as a business expense. Now, when I claim as a business expense, for the purpose of my whatever professional income is being generated, I'll say to upkeep my personality, to upkeep my grace, I need to have this surgery done. Accordingly, he claims that this is my business related expense. Can I call this as import of service? Is a provision which will be examined. In case of import of service, service provider is outside India, service recipient is in India, place of supply to be in India, Now, in this case, because surgery is being done in US, applying provisions of section 13, subsection 3, place of supply happens to be US. So whenever there's a business expense of 10,000 coming to India, when you look at your profit and loss account, there are expenses which is there in foreign currency. This expenses in foreign currency, we will report this in my notes to accounts. The moment there is expenses in foreign currency, general tendency, demand of tax on reverse charge mechanism comes into picture. So whenever there's a demand of tax on reverse charge mechanism, we have to explain them, sir, I will pay RCM only then place of supply happens to be India. In this case, applying provisions of section 13, subsection 3, my place of supply is US. I need not pay tax on reverse charge basis. Let me see if there are any questions. So far, so good. Let me continue further. Where services are provided at more than one location, including taxable territory, place of supply shall be in taxable territory. Now, services are performed in more than one state or union territory. Place of supply shall be each of such state or union territory as per the contract of agreement. I'll explain this in this example. Say there is a seller there is a buyer. Seller is XYZ Limited, registered person in Tamil Nadu. Buyer is a entity, say ABC Inc. in US. Now, this ABC Inc. sends a particular plant and machinery for repair. Now, XYZ Limited says that I'll perform the repair. The charges of repair is 1 lakh USD. This is my consideration. Now, this particular repair activity, assuming for a moment, this plant and machinery, 50% of repair is done in Tamil Nadu. 40% of repair is done in, say, Maharashtra. 10% of repair is done in, say, Singapore. Then the goods travel back to US after the repair related activity. Now, in this case, section 13 subsection 3 says that where the performance is done in a state or union territory and also placed outside taxable territory, then they say the place of supply shall be taxable territory. So point number one, wherever the place of supply, the performance is done in taxable territory, also outside taxable territory. So first conclusion will be the place of supply shall be taxable territory. Second point, they say the place of supply shall be identified to each of such state or union territory on the basis of performance. Since the performance is done 50% in Tamil Nadu, this is my place of supply for 50%. 40% is done in Maharashtra, this will be my place of supply. In this 10% case, since it is in taxable territory, I call Tamil Nadu as my place of supply. This is how I identify my place of supply, which is in more than one particular state or union territory. This is my provision covered under section 13, subsection 3. Kaushik is asking this question. In case of surgery, place of supply to be where services are performed. But you said in India, okay. See, surgery is done in US as per provisions of section 13, subsection 3. Since the performance is done in US, my place of supply will be US, Kaushik. I'll come back to my slide. Now, in case of an individual, where there is a requirement of physical presence, where the performance is done, that place of performance is my place of supply. So here, if the surgery is done in US, my place of supply is going to be US. In case of import, Kaushiki, service provider is outside India, the surgeon is outside India. Service recipient to be in India, the celebrity is in India. Place of supply should be India. As per section 13, subsection 3, because the performance is done in US, my place of supply happens to be US. Then I don't call this as a import of service for payment of tax on reverse charge mechanism. Hope this is clear, ma? Let me see if there are any doubts before I go further. Next. Now, there is a rule defined as per generally accepted accounting principles. You identify how much is the performance in a state or a union territory. On the basis of that, identify your place of supply. This is a general application rule. Next. Immovable property, as section 12, subsection 3 goes. Same concept is applicable under section 13, subsection 4. So in case of an immovable property, services supplied directly in relation to immovable property by estate agents, by experts, in case of accommodation, in case of right to use a mobile property, in case of construction work, in case of interior decorator, whatever it is, they say my place of supply shall be the place where immobile property is located or intended to be located. Intended to be located. That shall be my place of supply. What do you mean by intended to be located? Intended to be located, that means I give a structural drawing, I give a architect design. Now, property is yet to come into existence. Say, my close friend who happens to be an architect in Singapore. Singapore is well known for designing drawings. If you see this, most of structural design, like for a moment, this state of Andhra Pradesh, when previous Chief Minister Chandrababu Naidu happens to be the Chief Minister of Andhra Pradesh, there was a capital city called Amaravati. As of now, there is a dispute hanging around what is the capital city of Andhra Pradesh. So when Chandrababu Naidu happens to be the Chief Minister of Andhra Pradesh at a point in time, he has called experts from Singapore for giving a structural design for the capital city in Amaravati. Amaravati is one place which is there in Maharashtra. Amaravati is one more place which is there in Andhra Pradesh. So in Andhra Pradesh, the buildings were not there. The civil structures were not there. So before even this structure came into picture, the architects were called from Singapore to give their opinion or drawings. So when I say intended to be located, the property is not yet come into existence. It is yet to come into existence. That's called intended to be located. Next. Section 13, subsection 5. Now, this is in relation to conducting an event, admitting or organizing some of the events. They say, place of supply of services supplied by way of admission or organizing cultural, artistic, sporting, scientific, education, entertainment, or celebration or conference, fair, exhibition, or similar events, or services ancillary to such admission or organizing. In these cases, the place of supply shall be place where the event is actually held. The place where event is actually held. This is very simple example to understand. IMTA is one of a trade fair. This happens once in a year. One of a prominent event for manufacturers. For a moment, like in this trade fair, there will be something called stalls. Also, there will be souvenir where advertisements are placed. Now, this particular trade fair is very, very prominent for business deals to happen. For a moment, let's assume that from Russia, there's an entity called XYZ Limited. This particular entity is into defense supplies. Now, this IMTA, assuming that this is an entity, Section 25 entity registered under Companies Act. Now, IMTA gets an order from this XYZ Limited for the purpose of placing a stall. Now, service provider is in India. Service recipient is from Russia. XYZ Limited makes a payment of, say, $1 lakh. $1 lakh. Now, when this money of $1 lakh is paid in foreign currency, as per the provisions of this section 13, subsection 5, this is a entry. This is a admission fee. For the purpose of business. So here, because this event is conducted in Maharashtra, my place of supply happens to be Maharashtra. Now, when I talk about export of services, service provider service provider in India, service recipient outside India, consideration foreign currency, place of supply in Maharashtra. Because the place of supply is Maharashtra, this is one of the condition which is a failure. Because of this, I don't call this as an export. It is not an export. So in this case, when IMTA receives a consideration of 1 lakh US dollars, 18% GST will be charged. 18% GST will be charged. Now, place of supply happens to be Maharashtra. Manufacturer is also in Maharashtra. Service provider is in Maharashtra. Place of supply is in Maharashtra. What will happen here? SGST, CGST of Maharashtra, 9% will be charged. This is how we analyze the provisions of Section 13, subsection 5 in relation to admission or organizing a cultural, artistic, sporting, scientific, or any other conference or business fair or exhibition. This is provisions of Section 13, subsection 5. Let me see if there are any doubts. Good. Let's come back to next provision. Now, what if these services are performed, admission or organizing an event? This is performed provided more than one location, including a location in taxable territory. Then the conclusion, this is a deeming fiction. Place of supply shall be location in taxable territory. I'll give one example. Say, there's an entity called XYZ Tour Planners. Service provider. I call them registered person in UP. Service recipient is ABC Limited, ABC INC. Now, this ABC INC, they have approached this XYZ tour planners saying that, look, we wanted to have some event to be conducted, some visit to be done for various places. Now, these tour planners sitting in Uttar Pradesh, they got a contract from ABC saying that they wanted to have some event to be conducted for their employees as an annual fair. They wanted to have some particular event. This particular event, they can call this as a cultural event. Like they wanted to say, please make our employees aware of various practices across globe. So they say, please make them visit to Sri Lanka to make them understand how the culture is there. Let them visit Singapore. Let them visit, say, China. Also let them visit India. Now, when they visit all these places, they'll understand the behavioral pattern. The consumption pattern. Also, maybe the market which is available. So it's kind of cultural, also kind of trade related event. Now here, if you look at this carefully, 3 events are outside India. 1 event is in taxable territory. Now, when I apply provisions of Section 13, basic condition, when I apply Section 13, service provider, service recipient, either of them should be outside India. Either of them should be outside India. Now, in this case, ABC outside India, this XYZ tour planners is in India. Then I come and examine Section 13. As per provisions of Section 13, when this contract is entered into, I say that this is a place of supply in relation to admission or organizing of a cultural, artistic, sporting, scientific, education, or entertainment, or celebration, or any other event. So in this case, they say that because the event is being performed at multiple places, and one of them is taxable territory. Accordingly, the place of supply happens to be taxable territory. It's a deeming fiction. Where services are performed, supplied more than one location, including a location in taxable territory, its place of supply shall be location in taxable territory. So all this particular service shall be deemed to be a supply in taxable territory. Once I say it is in taxable territory, service provider is in taxable territory, place of supply is in taxable territory. When place of supply is taxable territory, one of the condition, export of services. This complete requirements of export of services is not complete. When I say it is not export of services, I cannot call that as a zero rated supply. What I have to do, I have to charge GST. What is your location? Location on record. Service provider, wherever is registered, that shall be the location. Accordingly, SGST, CGST, SGST UP, CGST Uttar Pradesh has to be charged. This is my provisions connected with section 13, subsection 5. Next. Subsection 6 and subsection 7 more connected with classifying where the event is done in multiple states. Then identify on the basis of percentage of performance each particular state. When it is done in multiple, outside taxable territory, in taxable territory, then presume that it's a deeming fiction that it is performed in taxable territory. Next, moving on, 13.8. First aspect, they are dealing with banking company or financial institution or non-banking financial institution. I'll give one example. Now, I was giving example of this state of AP, state of Andhra Pradesh. So they are service recipient. Service provider, say XYZ INC. This is an entity registered in Singapore. There is a capital city called Amaravati. For this, design and drawing services, design and drawings are to be provided. Assuming for a moment, 200 crores happens to be the capital outlay or consideration. This is a consideration. Andhra Pradesh government gets in with XYZ INC. Whenever this contracts are awarded, this particular contract has a condition that a bank guarantee should be provided for, say, 10% of the contract value. Now, State Bank of India is the bank which is there in Amaravati, for a moment, Andhra Pradesh. XYZ INC approaches State Bank of India saying that, look, I got a contract from Andhra Pradesh government. I'm giving design and drawing services where this is my contract value. Part of this 20 crores I have to provide as bank guarantee. Now, State Bank of India, when they render services, State Bank of India is a registered person in Andhra Pradesh. Service recipient is XYZ Singapore. Now, section 13, subsection 8, they say, place of supply for the following services should be location of supplier of service. Location of supplier of service. So here, service is supplied by a banking company, financial institution, or non-banking financial institution to their account holders. shall be the location of such service provider. So here, applying these provisions, my place of supply shall be AP. So here, for a moment, assuming that for 20 crores bank guarantee, 10 lakhs happens to be processing fee. Processing fee. Now, on this processing fee, assuming 18% is the GST, State Bank of India has to charge SGST, CGST, Andhra Pradesh. Why? Though the recipient is outside India, because of this section 13(8), wherever the location of supply is there, that shall be my place of supply. Let me see if there are any doubts. So far, so good. Next aspect called intermediary service. Now, this term intermediary is important. Examination, another 3 marks provision, either section 13 subsection 3 or section 13 subsection 8 will be one particular question which will be asked for 3 marks in your examination. Intermediary means a broker or an agent or any other person by whatever name called, who arranges or facilitates the supply of goods and services of both or securities between 2 or more persons, but does not include a person who supply such goods or services on his own account. These 4 are the points which are relevant for intermediary. There's one Wells Fargo, one particular advanced ruling in the case of Maharashtra. Wells Fargo is one company where they have operate BPO. This particular BPO, it's like a telecaller service. Usually, whenever the goods are sold, these telecallers, they get the customer complaints. So what this telecaller will do, whatever complaints are received, they try to attend the calls, they try to give solutions, and if there is any lead, they pass it on to the main principal. So this particular BPO have been doing these operations for a US entity. They have filed a refund application saying that, so these are the services on which I have taken input tax credit. This is the accumulation of input tax credit. Please give me a refund of my ITC. Where this term intermediary was discussed at length. So here they say there should be a service provider, there should be a 2 or more people. So here when I say intermediary is a person. They have used a term called means. There is a difference between the term means and includes. When you read a definition, it says includes, then it is an exhaustive list. Supply includes Section 7 of CGST Act. Supply includes sale, barter, exchange, license, lease, rental, etc. So when I say include, it is an exhaustive definition. Means there are various terminology which can be brought in. When I say means, it is just a restriction. It means a broker or agent. That's all. Nothing beyond that. So this broker or agent, it facilitates the supply of goods and services between 2 or more persons, but it does not include the supply by on his own account. I'll give a couple of examples. Say there is a seller in Germany. There are prospective buyers in India. There is an agent, say in Maharashtra. Now, seller is into sale of, chiller, or I'll say machine tools. Now, this machine tools are to be sold in India. So this seller, assuming for a moment, PQR GmbH. This is an entity registered in Germany. They have appointed Mr. H, or say the agent called Mr. A. Mr. A has to identify the prospective buyers in India, and wherever there is a lead, this lead is passed on to this seller in Germany. So wherever there is an order, PQR GmbH will make a direct supply. For a moment, let's assume there are customers like Maruti Suzuki Limited, Hero Honda, Hero, Maruti, Nissan. These are all various automobile clients. So wherever there is a requirement of a tool, this A visits this particular company, finds out, okay, what is that business you do, what activity you are doing, is there anything where there is a process reduction can be done, cost cutting can be done. All this will be assembled, filtered, and identifies the requirement. Now here, supply of tool directly PQR GmbH supplies to end customer. Now in turn, Mr. A gets commission. So here, the four elements which I have explained when I spoke about intermediary. Intermediary means an agent or a middleman. Now, is he an agent? Answer is yes. Is he making any supply? He is not making any supply. Who supplies or who facilitates? The buyer in India, Maruti Suzuki Limited, the seller in Germany, PQR GmbH, is just connecting these two people. Is the supply happening directly by A? Answer is no. A is not making any supply. For the supply which happens from PQR to this Maruti Suzuki Limited, A is drawing his commission. In this case, A is called as intermediary. In this case, they say place of supply shall be of A. Say for a moment, Mr. A is registered in Karnataka. If A is registered in Karnataka, place of supply of Mr. A will be Karnataka. This is what section 13, subsection A explains. Let me see if there are any dots. Kaushiki says intermediary includes Ola, Uber, Oyo. They are not intermediary, Kaushiki. They are e-commerce operator. There's a difference between intermediary and e-commerce operator. E-commerce operator, there is a platform, Ola, Uber, etc. There's a platform. This platform is connecting seller and buyer. The supply is happening through the platform. Consideration for that money is collected by the platform. This is called e-commerce operator. In case of intermediary, it's just an agent. It's just connecting seller, buyer. The money, the supply, everything happens directly between them. Only A is going to get a commission. In that case, A will be called as intermediary, but not. This he is not e-commerce operator. He's just an intermediary. Now, what is the importance of this subsection 8? In this example, what I've explained, say Mr. A is a registered person in Andhra Pradesh. XYZ GmbH is there in Germany. Say for a month of April 2022, say 50 leads were given. The value of consideration, which is nothing but a commission, is say rupees 10 lakhs. Or equivalent, assuming 8,500 or some, for ease of understanding, I'll call $10,000. $10,000. If I convert this, let me make this as 8.5 lakh INR. 8,50,000 rupees. So here, service provider is in India. Service recipient is outside India. Place of supply happens to be AP. Because the place of supply happens to be AP, it's not an export. It is not an export. Now, what is the fate of Mr. A? A has to charge 18% GST. A has to charge 18% GST. Now, what set of GST? Place of supply is AP. Register person is AP. 9% CGST. 9% SGST. This is a burden to Mr. A. If XYZ GmbH does not pay. There was one Gujarat High Court judgment where the individual person who is actually into this kind of business, he filed a writ petition with Gujarat High Court. My Lordship, I have been contributing to the Indian economy. I have been getting money in convertible foreign currency. The GST law says that I have to charge GST. This is a completely unfair activity. For the reason, this customer in Germany, he says, why should I take a hit of 18% GST? Because this is a tax to be suffered in India. My customer is not willing to pay. So in this case, the Honorable High Court has said, look, this is a policy matter. Definitely, this can be escalated to the GST Council to examine why you wanted to hold intermediary under Section 13, subsection 8 as place of supplies in India. Please examine. But as on today, the way law is written, this intermediary CGST, SGST has to be paid by the intermediary. It's a cost to his personal account. Next, moving on, transportation. In case of transportation of goods, other than by way of mail or courier, the destination of goods shall be place of supply. Like say XYZ Limited is in India. There is a seafarer, there is a ocean freight carrier who is in Singapore. If the goods are carried from Singapore to India, since the goods are destined to India, place of supply happens to be India. If the recipient, the importer is registered in Maharashtra, place of supply happens to be Maharashtra. Very simple. Where the goods are destined, that will be Section 12, subsection 8, Section 13, subsection 9. Similarly, passenger transportation service, where the passenger embarks on the conveyance, that will be my place of supply. Water is covered under Section 12, subsection 9. The same is covered under Section 13, subsection 10. Next, services on board. Services on board. So when there is a services rendered on board or conveyance, similarly, what is covered under Section 12, the same thing is covered over here. The same. Whenever services are rendered on board or conveyance, please identify the first scheduled point of departure. Nothing different. What was there under 12? The same thing they have brought into Section 13 also. Next is the important aspect called OIDER, Online Information Database Access Retrieval Services. Online Database Access Retrieval Services. The definition goes like this. Online Information Database Access Retrieval Services means whose delivery is mediated by information technology over internet or electronic network, and nature of which renders their supply essentially automated, involves minimal human intervention, impossible to ensure absence of information technology. This definition, what I'm reading to you, Finance Act 2023, the recent budget which was presented by Honorable Finance Minister, completely got revamped. It to be notified as on today. This definition, there is one more definition called online non-taxable recipient. These two definitions have undergone a change. For that reason, expect a theory question for 3 marks in your November 2023 attempt. I repeat again, this particular definition called OIDER completely has been revamped by virtue of Finance Act 2023. Maybe for May 2024 attempt, this might be applicable. Since this November 2023 is a sunset clause for this definition, Expect one theory question from examination. So it says, online information database retrieval services means services whose delivery, there is a service. How did the service happens? It is through delivery, which is mediated, which is communicated, which is existed, which is identified by way of a information technology. So unless there is information technology, this OIDER doesn't come into picture. This information technology over internet or electronic network. How does this comes into picture? Either through internet or electronic network. Nature of which renders their supply essentially automated. Essentially automated. That means there's no human intervention. Now this essentially automated is something completely omitted in the new definition. They felt that there's no human intervention, completely it's automated. So they have revamped this term called automation, involving minimal human intervention. Now this is completely not there in the new definition. Impossible to ensure in the absence of information technology. Now this is something which they wanted to tax in India by way of section 13 subsection 12. Section 13 subsection 12. Now, I'll give an example for this, why this is coming to picture. OIDER. Innovation to the peaks. When we read this definition, we may feel complicated. For a moment, step into the shoes of a lawmaker. If I have to be a taxman, if I have to tax this particular activity. Let's take example of Google, AWS, Netflix. Now, Google is into the activity of email, domain, organization. AWS is into the activity of cloud services. Even Google for a moment, it is into cloud management. Netflix, entertainment. Amazon, say education and entertainment. Now, when we read these provisions at final level, for a minute, I'll just come out of your regular theory. When we read certain provisions, these provisions will tinkle the creativity. These provisions tinkle the innovation, how thought process is evolved. Taxing a particular entity, taxing a particular business, which does not have a physical presence in India. For a moment, the government of India, the taxation department, doesn't levy taxes by virtue of Article 269. Now, I don't know the place of supply. I don't imagine how I have to fix the border of this particular transactions. When I talk about interstate supply, look at the way innovation was brought in. Google has come into India. Most of us have Gmail account. There's a free account up to 15 GB. They don't charge you. For a moment, assuming that you happen to be a qualified chartered accountant, you use, say, Sriram@gmail.com, Mansa@gmail.com, Kaushik@gmail.com. Over a period of time, my Gmail account has got the data capacity exceeding 15 GB. The moment my Gmail exceeds 15 GB, no emails will be delivered. It says account is overdue because of constraint of space. Fresh emails will not come. You cannot send emails. So what I will do? I'll buy email space. Either I have to empty my inbox or I have to buy space. So Google charges something called 1,300 per annum for what? For giving say 1 terabyte of email space. Also, Google says, look, create an organization. Now, whenever email comes from a client, say for a moment, if I assume, say there are 10 people in my office. If I say X gmail.com, Y gmail.com, Z gmail.com, A gmail.com, all these are personal accounts. When XYZ leaves the office, all the data leaves with XYZ. Not to have that, Google says, look, don't worry, I'll give an account called Praveen, at gmail.com, Praveen1 at gmail.com, Praveen2 at gmail.com, accounts1, accounts2, accounts3. Now, various emails are given, which is under one organization. When employee leaves our organization, the mails are still with organization. AWS, Cloud Management Service. All your, when I buy Microsoft license, they say, I'll give you 1 terabyte license, or this Google Cloud. Or these days, after COVID, most of these offices have their data on cloud. AWS is one of the cloud service operator. One of the fantastic thing with this AWS, if anyone wants to delete the data, however best you try, you can never delete the data. Reason, AWS has got that security features. Any data which is deleted from server, it goes and sits at a particular repository. Admin can log in and can retrieve that data. Netflix, entertainment. Sitting at my home, if I just recharge for 100 rupees per month, maybe it may cost $1 in terms of foreign currency. Sitting at my doorstep, I have automated this electronic TV, where if I have an internet connection to my TV, without my DTH services, I can watch Netflix events. Similarly, Amazon. All these are the events which are getting rendered in India by a service provider called Online Database Access Retrieval Service. So here, they have identified recipient as 2 categories. Recipient 1, business category. That means who's a registered person. Another category, they call this as, let me just look at the one definition. Online non-taxable recipient. Non-taxable online recipient. Non-taxable online recipient. Non-taxable online recipient. Now, whenever the services are received by a registered person pays tax on reverse charge. So government is not worried. Government is worried with this particular sector, All of us who are enjoying these services on remote basis, online basis, government says OIDER has to register and pay IGST. If OIDER doesn't want to register, they can appoint an intermediary. This intermediary has to register and pay IGST. So here they say, look, any of the service, any of the revenue you get from India, they have used this particular slide. If the address of recipient is in taxable territory, if the payment of the recipient either through credit or debit card is from taxable territory, if the billing address is in taxable territory, if payment bank payment is from taxable territory, if the country code or subscriber identity is from taxable territory, if the location of fixed landline is in taxable territory, any of these conditions, if any of these conditions are satisfied, then they say OIDER has to register in India and charge GST or pay GST to the government. All those services which are coming to India. Now imagine Netflix, Google, AWS, Amazon. We know these brands, government can tax these brands. What about those services? Like example, someone says, I provide this fitness, online yoga, online meditation, online mediation, or some design services. Taxing these people is very, very cumbersome. However, Section 1312, subsection 12 comes and says, in case of these particular activities, they have to register and pay tax in India. This is something connected with OIDER. Next, last section, section 13, subsection 13, where it says, in case there is a double taxation, in case if the government feels because of World Customs Organization, there should be a uniformity. Then the government of India will interfere and they give a notification by virtue of which they identify what is the effective usage of a particular service, effective enjoyment of a particular service. COVID is one classic example where all these list of activities like integrated discovery and development in relation of a drug, integrated development of a drug, evaluation and efficacy of a new chemical, evaluation of a biological activity of a novel chemical, drug metabolism. Now, Government of India has examined all these services and they say, look, these services should need a clinical trial. When the clinical trial is done, like example, this COVID medicine, all of us have passed to the stage of 2020, 2021. So when Remdesivir was to be tested, wherever this test is done, as per section 13, subsection 13, government say effective usage is what we see. Because the trials are performed in India, they say these services are not presumed to be outside India. For a moment, Pfizer, Pfizer, Pfizer has launched a particular issue with, say, World Health Organization, WHO. Look, I wanted to test this drug in India. I wanted to see whether this services are, this particular drug is performing or not. They can do this through intermediary, which is there in India. And if this clinical trials are performed, they say, I presume that service recipient is in India, service provider is outside India. And the money is received in convertible foreign currency, but still the place of supply happens to be India. This is by way of a notification 4 of 2019 under IGST law. Also, there was one amendment where in relation to aircraft, in relation to ship, they have introduced a provision saying that wherever a maintenance, wherever repair has to be done on an aircraft, on an engine, or on a ship, they say as long as these aircraft or ship are in India, the location, the recipient of service will be in India. Accordingly, GST has to be charged. So this provisions of section 13, subsection 13 was used for aircraft, ship, or vessel. When the place of when the performance is done in India for the furtherance of business in India, then they say place of supply of services shall be location of the recipient of such service. So with this, we come to the end of provisions connected with cross-border called import or export. This is a very short provision. I have taken decent time to explain the background of these provisions. End of today's session, spend at least some 10 minutes to run through this overview of provisions. Important, please go through, recap the provisions, test your knowledge. Don't miss these provisions. We'll come back with next session where we will discuss on identification of time of supply, identification of value of supply. Till then, good night, goodbye.